While hard work and dedication are keys to any success that we experience, I also think it's super important for us to sometimes take a step back and realize that rest, relaxation, and recovery time is just as important. What a friend told me one time is that he said, Chris, you have to remember is that rest is part of your training. Hi, everyone. Chris Natzke here with Black Belt Leadership Speaking and Coaching with your Mind of a Champion tip of the week. Like many times, this little message of the week is as much for me as it is for you. I'm coming off of several weeks where I've had very few days off. And while I love what I do, and I think I make a great impact doing it, sometimes what I find is that I don't take enough time to slow down, relax, and recover. And I know that nature abhors a vacuum, so if I'm not really intentional about that rest time, what ends up happening is a bunch of other activities and commitments tend to just move into those spaces on my calendar, and pretty soon I end up looking back and going, what have I been doing? You know, it reminds me of about, oh man, I guess now it's over 20 years ago, when I was getting ready to test for my 6th degree black belt back in August of the year 2000. And I've been training super hard. I had my two instructors, Grandmaster J.K. Lee and Grandmaster Bill Superfoot Wallace, coming in for the test. I had a big event planned. I had other guest instructors coming, and I was going to be training my darnest for this test. And I did, man. I was at peak condition. But what ended up happening was toward the latter part of my training, probably about 4 weeks out, I started to feel really run down. I just didn't have it anymore. I felt tired. I felt my muscles ached, my joints ached. And so I went to my good friend, the late Gil Greiner, who was a homeopathic. And Gil and I had a great relationship. In fact, he was a former Mr. Colorado bodybuilder. So he had this way of being able to speak to me in ways that other people couldn't because he's been there. And he did his little analysis on me in this, what he called the Phasix machine. And he went through the entire body scan. And then his face got real sober. And he looked at me and he said, Chris, I'll tell you what, man, whatever you're doing, you are way overtraining. He said, you are getting ready not just for an injury, but for a major injury. He says, you're not looking to maybe pull a hamstring, you're looking to tear a hamstring. He says, you need to slow down. Well, I, of course, got super defensive because I had instructors coming in from out of state, and I had this big event planned for my 6th degree black belt test. And he said, I'm thinking, he goes, how many kicks could you limit yourself to per week in order to get ready for this test? He said, the number I'm getting is 100. I said, well, begrudgingly, I guess I could, knock it down to 100 kicks a day. He said, no, 100 a week. And I was like, there's no way. I mean, I was doing workouts where I was doing 1,000 to 1,200 kicks in an hour on a daily basis. And now he was asking me to pull it way back. But then he said something to me that totally stopped me in my tracks. He said, Chris, you need to realize something. You need to realize that rest is part of your training. Rest is part of your training. Man, that blew my mind. I'd never thought about it that way before. I always just thought that what I always needed to do was drive to get ahead. And quite honestly, my friends, I still deal with that from time to time. So today what I want to do is I want to share with you 3 strategies that I've learned to help me deal with the constant push and grind of things so that I can stay refreshed and I can allow that rest to be part of my training and success. Now, I'm going to be really honest. I'm obviously not great at it. It's something that I'm working on, but I think many of us are in the same boat, and I want to share those with you now. So number 1 is make sure you get adequate sleep. I think that in our society, it's almost like a badge of honor when we say we can get by on 3, 4, 5 hours of sleep a night. But most studies will show that we need 7.5 to 8 hours of sleep to function at our highest level. And not only having that time, that we dedicate to sleep, but making sure we have good sleep hygiene. So before you're going to be going to bed is make sure you're getting off of blue screens anywhere from 30 to 60 minutes before, and have a routine where you begin to slow down. You get ready for bed. Maybe you're in bed reading, not on a Kindle, but an actual book, right? So that you're not absorbing that blue light. And even set an alarm for when you start to slow that routine down. We use alarms to wake us up, but what if we had alarms to help us go, oh, it's that time for us to begin shutting things down and make sure that we can get adequate rest. Also, make sure the room is cold. Studies will show that the colder the room, the better we go to sleep. And also make sure that we have as much complete darkness as you can in that room. So that's number one, get adequate sleep. Get adequate sleep. Number two is plan your downtime. Ooh, that's a tough one for me, right? You know, like I said before, nature abhors a vacuum. So if I see little openings in my calendar, I'll open it up to do tasks, work, have meetings, etc. But what I'm going to encourage you to do is actually schedule it. You know, put your time in there when you're going to go take a walk, when you're going to read a book, when you're going to do whatever that is that helps you replenish and regain the energy by just shutting things down. And then the final one, and here's the one that I probably need to work on the most, and it's related to number two, but take some time to just be. Take some time to just be. So even in your rest and recovery time, you don't need to be reading a book. You don't need to be watching something on television. You might just sit and be, or take a walk in nature and just be. One of the stories that I loved about Thomas Edison, who was an amazing inventor, right, in the early 19th century. What he did is he had a daily routine of going fishing. Now, why do I say fishing? Well, what stories say about him is he would go down the lake and he would throw in a line and a bobber, but there would be no bait on the hook. He would just watch the bobber going up and down. He would just be. And from that place is where many of his best ideas came from. So learn about the power of just being and allowing things to come to you versus constantly chasing what you think you need to attain. So there you have it, my friends. I hope this helps you because I know each and every one of us want the greatest happiness and success for our life, but sometimes the best way to do that is to take our foot off the gas pedal and just allow ourselves to rest and recover. And remember this, as my good friend Gil told me, rest is part of your training and success. So thanks so much for joining me. Hope you enjoyed this. If you liked it, please share it, like it, love it, write some comments in there. And this has been Chris Natzke with Black Belt Leadership Speaking and Coaching. And we'll see you next time on the Mind of a Champion Tip of the Week.